I don't know if this is just me personally or my learning style or my personality. Um, but I think without having I'm considering this continued education. I don't
Mhm.
think without structured continued education, I would even be doing this still.
All right, welcome everyone back to ShinKyu University. My name is Maya Suzuki, your host here on this channel to learn everything about traditional Japanese acupuncture and moxibustion and really help you transition your practice from TCM to a traditional Japanese acupuncture moxibustion approach, Shonishin, of course, included. Today, I'm really, really excited to have one of our members from ShinKyu University here on the platform to introduce his transition in his practice from where he was when he graduated school to where he's at right now and where he wants to go and how that's related back to ShinKyu University. So Jimmy has been in the program now for, has it been a year now, Jimmy?
I think we're at just about a year right now.
Right. And when I think you came into the program right after graduation, is that right?
Um, I began the program, to be honest with you, I feel like ever since I met you that one time at school at Advanced
Oh,
Techniques, I started
yeah.
coming to mentor with you and shadow you. And then even before I entered into ShinKyu, you continued to invite me down to your office. So I had been watching you. I didn't realize that I was going to make a transition so quickly. But really, the transition wasn't much of a transition for me. It was really an opportunity. I think we talked about this when I first started. Like I have an opportunity to really invent myself as a
Mm,
Japanese style practitioner. So um, that's really where my journey began with you. I I always knew that mentorship, and I heard stories. My acupuncturist, he had a mentor, and he was an apprentice and learned acupuncture just completely from his mentor.
mm,
Was at one point then had to go back to school to get qualified, but I was like, I think that's how I learn best. Um, and really, I think that is the like an underlying current that has been with me ever since
mm.
I entered school. So I started my journey to acupuncture school, um, or to becoming an acupuncturist 8 years ago this month. Was the
Wow.
first time I enrolled in a program.
I had
And
no idea it'd been this long for you.
it has. And I've been to a few schools. I've had a couple children. I've considered changing careers a couple times in that as well, returning to carpentry or engineering. And there's just continually to be this pull. Um,
Wow.
and now landing with ShinKyu and working with you, it's the only experience or the only thing that I can really share is how grounding it is to know that you're out there, to know
Mm.
that when I can reach out if I'm up or I'm down, to be honest with you, either one, sometimes I can be overly excited and sometimes I can be overly discouraged. And
As us all.
how nice it is to know that not only you, Maya, are out there, but that there's other people. There's other people in a group,
Mhm.
in the university, on the Facebook group, um, that are really there to answer questions, to just to connect with and feel like after graduation, I'm still a part of something,
I love that.
right? So I still
Yeah,
feel like
that's
I'm a
yeah,
part on I'm on a journey with others.
yeah.
And I don't I don't know if this is just me personally or my learning style or my personality. Um, but I think without having considering this continued education, I don't
Mhm.
think without structured continued education, I would even be doing this still.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
can you tell me, to be quite honest, I had no idea that you had gone to different schools than other than CSTCM because I met you, for those of you who don't know, I teach at CSTCM sometimes
Hmm.
um, as an adjunct professor. And so I had no idea. So
Yeah.
why did you switch schools and why were you thinking of not doing this anymore?
Well, so I went out to Santa Cruz. I actually brought my family at the time with me, and we were moving to Santa Cruz so I could become an acupuncturist. Um, that just didn't quite work out the way that I don't know what part of me thought it was just going to be that easy. Um,
Mm.
but I spent a year and a half in Santa Cruz at the Five Branches and loved the
Okay.
program. And I think also loved surfing Pleasure Point a little bit more than I should have. And just my family transitioned at the time, and we moved back to Colorado. So I had a child out there, really liked acupuncture school, um, found some great people, became involved in some medical qigong. I really enjoy that as well, and have studied a bit of that. Um, and then came back to Colorado.
Mm.
Uh, initially, then even enrolled in Southwest in SWAC, attended there for either 1 or 2 semesters. I'm not quite sure. Um, had another just again life transition. I met my current partner Tiara during that time. We had another baby, so I have two children now, um,
Mhm.
and was with her, supporting her through that, and took sabbatical from school again. At that point,
Mhm.
again, I was gonna not be an acupuncturist, and for whatever happened, I don't know exactly the fine details, but an open house at CSTCM popped up. I was like, I'm already going down this road. Maybe I should go. And I felt at home there. So
Mm.
I went down and enrolled at CSTCM. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so that's been the journey went through the pandemic. So
Yeah.
also again, this is when the transition of even maybe part of how Shinku is even possible now, that
Yeah.
learning can happen on Zoom. Here we are. We have our monthly meetups, or our weekly and monthly meetups. Um,
Hmm.
and then finished off acupuncture school May of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the snippet of my journey to this point. Prior to studying for board exams, and then really I got licensed. I thought that the boards were going to be these impossible things, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay. And now what? Now I'm done. What do I do now? So,
Mm.
um, and yes, I feel very blessed to continue to connect with you and with ShinKyu, because that's really allowed me in the role of like a new practitioner to feel again a part of something, because
Hmm.
we didn't really learn what it means to be an acupuncturist in school. Um, we
How
had our
so?
we had our general business classes. We had um our clinic, but our clinic, like, I loved clinic. I had 6 patients back to back twice a week, and
Hmm.
I loved it. But that's not what it looks like as soon as you become a graduate and become as soon as you become
Mm.
a licensed acupuncturist.
Can
So
you
there was
speak
some
more to that?
inconsistent. Um, well,
Like
to be
what
an
would you say is the biggest like differences between those two for you?
well, now I have to book my own schedule. So I'm a private practice acupuncturist. I have actually applied to almost 5 jobs and
Hmm.
wasn't the right fit, but then also realized that it it wasn't in alignment with how I like to practice either.
Mm.
Your guidance has helped me a lot through that as well, understanding that more is not always better. Being busier isn't always better. That you can get burnout being a new practitioner, making if it was a job. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't.
Hmm.
But some of the structures out there with that I ran into really didn't feel like they were going to honor my energy and my input.
Hmm.
But really, aside from that, just recognizing through really continuing to work with you and through ShinKyu that I'm really just still like in the infancy of developing my skills.
Mm.
The developing of the so I like to work with my hands as I'm even talking with my hands. So I can build stuff, I can build tables, I can build houses, and recognizing that there is so much with the tool of a needle. as well as cones of moxibustion, but even just specifically with the needle,
Hmm.
how it's just a tool, and that a person that comes to see you is the canvas, and there's so many different techniques to learn and styles to learn and things to feel, and really different applications of, or not different applications, just truly the application of our medicine in clinic, not in clinic, in private practice or whatever. Just what's presented in clinic is definitely different than what I saw at school, what I read in my
Mm.
textbooks. And there we go back to really how grateful I am to be a part of ShinKyu, to can have continued guidance along the
Yeah.
way. And
I mean, it's,
how I think that it's really important to our medicine. Like
yeah.
I think that our medicine will thrive. I think first it needs to survive, and next I think it will thrive through acupuncturists coming together
Hmm.
and and I don't know, coming together, whether that's through mentorship or collaboration or
Yeah.
figuring out how to uh, do what some of these other professional organizations and associations do, just
Yeah.
to come together,
I
um,
mean,
to
that's
be in
so huge.
competition, really.
It's so huge. And one of the biggest, for me, when I came to this country, one of the biggest things I noticed that was way different from Japan compared to the US, and really everywhere else now that I've gone around the world a little bit more, is the difference in the complete lack of a cohesive unit of a community. Like there's no community aspect to our practices at all. We are all just in our own little battle arena with the other practitioners in our area, and we're just working so hard to get our clients,
Yeah,
and we're not communicating. Like there's no communication
yeah.
that goes on, or like rising each other up or building each other up. That it just doesn't happen here. It's
I
mind blowing to me.
It's interesting to hear that you see that, because I just have little tastes, so I don't want to like have a blanket statement about that. But I appreciate you saying that you've seen it in different countries. That
Yes.
well, okay, so back to where I said like how I feel in my infancy still as a practitioner. I, I I'm trying to say this in the kindest possible way, honoring the education that I've received, honoring all my wonderful teachers and all of my wonderful clinic supervisors and guidance and all of that. But being launched into the real world and expected to be an effective practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
truly without mentorship and guidance and structure beyond graduation, one, I was arrogant that I thought I was be as effective and as good of a practitioner. And I understand that practice, but I just in your last post that practice is good, but if your practice isn't guided, you can be practicing the wrong thing over and over again. And if you continue to practice the
100%.
wrong thing, then what's the point?
Well,
And when
I
I
mean,
felt like
you're just on a hamster wheel.
you're just on a hamster wheel spinning around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought I had a big head about being an acupuncturist, and now in the real world, not only humbled by clientele, humbled by challenges and being effective, but now working with you and recognizing, wow, there's so much for my hands to learn how to use the needle, for me to drop
Mm-hmm.
into the right posture, for the ki or the chi to flow, for me to understand the concept of tonification versus dispersion. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not just about sticking a needle in, like that kind of works, but the needles, there are paintbrushes or are chisels, and if we're
Mm-hmm.
creating art with that, there's so much more subtlety to it that
Yeah.
we can learn outside of school. We need the foundation of the theory. We
Mm-hmm.
obviously need to be licensed.
100%.
We need to be all of that. But
Yeah.
now it's really the options are endless to how we can, what type of art we'll share. And then what I also see benefit, again, if we're bringing this back to Shinkyu, is that there is there is a way to go deeper without just adding more. Not, oh,
Mm.
well, go to this workshop to do
Wow.
e-stim, go to this shop to learn this new thing of herbs, go to this workshop to do, this and this and this and this. And it's like, even within the field of the acupuncture, I can see how the different, uh, the continued education units can really actually make you too broad of a practitioner instead of what
Hmm.
it feels like right now. What I'm learning is to be able to go deeper with the skills that I'm learning and
Man, I
become
love
really,
that.
really just more attuned. I think this whole
Yeah.
medicine is revolving around how attuned can we be to our client? How attuned can we be to like, hi, here's
Yeah.
Mm, how attuned can we be in the room?
Hmm.
And that presence really, I think, is the basis of our efficacy as really medical providers. I don't know
Well,
if
and
that
I
I
think
just made that word, but kind of,
mm,
yeah.
I
Mm.
am so glad that you said that because for me, that's really the goal with ShinKyu, right? Is to say, how did Oren Kivity put it? When I interviewed him, he said that, um, you can either be a bush and grow wide or be a tree and grow deep.
Huh. I love it.
And would put your roots down deep and grow really tall, right? And I love how he said that because for me, that's what in Shinkyu, we're doing, yes, it's the foundations. And you kind of mentioned it. It's these simplistic things, how to draw in your technique, how to really understand basic foundational theory, how to really understand where your posture is. It sounds so simple, but like those, I can't say it enough. Those are the most important things. It's like from an herbalist perspective in the Shanghanlun. The Shanghanlun, this extremely convoluted and hard to understand and hard to memorize book of knowledge, right? I wouldn't say convoluted. It's just really hard to understand. It's a big book of knowledge, but it begins and ends with the same formula. It's
Hmm.
literally saying the foundation is the same. You have gorgeous legs, girl, gorgeous legs. But I think that's a huge juxtaposition to where you just said of like going deep and really understanding things through your continuing educational credits and saying, look, we don't have to go broad. We can go deep and really understand something and really get this down and then increase our efficacy and elevate our practices through it. But I think that's a really hard juxtaposition to where it sounds like you were before you joined Shinkyu.
Hmm.
So
Well,
would you mind telling me like what do you see like what for you was the tipping point in your personal practice to be like I had to do something different.
I think the spoiler alert for anyone that's going to watch this is understanding that acupuncture is not a mental game. We can
Oh
have
yeah.
our theory, it's incredibly valuable to be able to reference what we learn, and really the education in acupuncture school is from a Western perspective, it's understanding that the Eastern lens, the Eastern worldview is different,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that if we can understand that that's really what we learn first is think differently and keep all of that relevant because you then start to see the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to it's not a mental game. It's what can you feel and what is actually happening in the treatment room.
Yeah.
And if you're in your head the whole time, and there are wonderful practitioners that will go and they will palpate channels and they still will come up with a point prescription and it will be spot on. So back to acupuncture being, how about now just being more than a mental game? We need
Mm-hmm.
to take what we learned and file that back away and then feel it. And when you feel it and you place that needle because you felt that live point, if you're really paying attention, it seems like that then the body speaks back, it responds,
Mm-hmm.
and then you move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And it might even be subtly different. Like I found I've palpated, put the dots, but like if I'm in session and I palpate and I place the needle instead of using a Sharpie, that maybe even the next point might even be slightly different than I thought it was in that static setting of just the palpation. And then
Mm-hmm.
moving into the next point is a new present moment and a new opportunity to respond to the innate wisdom of that person's body to be connected, and then you place that second needle.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I'm just getting these very short little glimmers of like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty comparable. It's the information and the wisdom that's coming from the body, it does look a lot like some of the things I learned in textbook,
Mm-hmm.
like, which is even cooler.
Well,
So
and that's the thing. The textbooks aren't wrong. The
no,
textbooks are right. They
no,
just
but
don't
now let's
explain it.
experience it. Yeah,
Yeah, there's no experience that's built into a book.
no, no. So what seems to be, I used this over the weekend, stripped for export. TCM seems to be
Mm-hmm.
stripped for export.
Yeah.
And what seems to be a critical thing that's been removed is mentorship. Being
Mm-hmm.
able to check back in. I hear you talk about your teachers that you go to, and
Yeah, all the time.
you're like, I feel like I don't know anything, because that's really encouraging to me coming to see you and in the
Yeah.
workshop over the weekend, because I'm like, I don't feel like I knew anything, but I did have my notebook from 2021, and I'm like, okay, but when I look back, I do feel more confident than I did then.
Yeah.
But this is just the journey,
It's well, and
and
that's the
the journey
thing.
continues.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like when I go back and study with my teacher, Yasta Sensei, there's times when I have a glimpse of like, oh, I chose the same point, or we thought the same thing, like, yes, I did it, I've got it. And then he does something completely different, and I'm like, I'm lost again. I have no idea. And, I've talked to him about this, and he tells me the same thing. He's like, look, if you're 10 years into your experience in this practice, you
I
have a
like that.
clue. You have a clue, right? You now know what you don't know, maybe. Maybe. When you're 20 years in, you're going to be a little bit more confident. And when you're 30 years, you're going to probably finally know what you're doing.
Huh.
But it takes
Okay.
a long time. It takes a
It
long
does.
time in this practice. And I love how you're saying that, like, it's not with disrespect to the educational models. It's not with disrespect to previous teachers. It's a matter of going into practice with mentorship or without, and how you
Yeah.
can, when you go into mentorship, you have the confidence and the strength of that mentor behind you so when you don't understand something, you can go, I don't understand. Can you please help me? I don't
Yeah.
understand, like, because I don't get it. But when you don't have that, it's just you. It's you and the patient and your bank account. And you better bet that that bank account's going to reflect what that confidence that you show in that room,
Uh-huh.
and of course the efficacy that you have with that client too. I mean, it's so huge. And I think the
Mm.
experience that you had when you came out of school, saying like, I can get this, I'm going to have such great results, I'm going to do fine. And then being kind of like, have a rude awakening, so to speak, and be humbled of like, oh, wait, there's a lot more here than I didn't know, that my education didn't give me. Bless you, cutie.
Tia, I was just talking to this about something similar to Tiara, and she's just listening, and she says, "Here, I've got this story for you. When you graduated, I called my mom crying because you just kept telling me that it was just going to be easy, and then just overnight, like this first year, that I'm going to go out and make $75,000 a year, and it's all going to be okay." And she's crying to her mom. She,
Oh no.
like,
She's a
and not to discourage anybody, and not to discourage anybody that's good at being, this is also being a salesperson of some sort to get
Yes.
out there. So what I'm learning is continued learning to build my conviction in the medicine,
Hmm.
which has waxed and waned. And every so often, I love going to have acupuncture, most recently with you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this works. Okay, cool. Kind of just like the little reset switch. And I'm like, this is cool. This works. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's a journey. And I appreciate you sharing that by the 10th year, you just kind of know what you don't know, maybe. And
Yeah, we
I think that's really important for new practitioners to understand is like they deserve, their clients deserve, and this medicine deserves that they go find somebody that they like to work with, that
hmm
can teach them something, and that they continue to learn. But that's again, I don't know that that's the right way to put it, that it's good for the whole ecosystem of acupuncture if all the acupuncturists are connected and we're all looking out for each other and we're training the new guys and we're not threatened by them and like,
exactly.
yes.
But it's so, so true because, you know, none of us can do this medicine forever.
Huh.
At some point, we're going to retire or we're going to die,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's just the truth of it. And I don't know, I just think it's silly that we don't think we should train other people in what we can do, first of all. But I think it's also important when you mentioned being a salesperson. And I just kind of, I mean, this might be a really good place for us to finish this conversation because I think it's really important that in our profession, people often shy away from this fact that we have to do sales, that we're
Hmm.
selling something. And I think a lot of people don't go in or fail at private practice because they don't want to be a salesperson. But you have to understand, I think, that if you're a salesperson, the only thing that you're doing is saying, like, I know my product inside and out, and I know for a fact that my product can help you.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing is you are servicing your client by saying, I know I can help you, and this is how I can help you, and this is how I'm going to help you. You want this product. And it
Hmm.
helps us too, because we need to eat to live. We need to pay
Yep.
back those student loans. We need to pay our mortgages and pay our rent. It's really
Yep.
important. I think too many people in our practice are like, I don't want to deal with money. I don't like being a salesperson. I don't want to sell myself. And it's like, you have to sell yourself. You have to. It is part of it. You sell yourself through the efficacy of each treatment that you give. You don't have to be going
Hmm.
out there door to door knocking like a vacuum salesperson. But you have to, every person who comes in, you have to get those results. And through that efficacy, say, look, I got you those results. And if you see someone else who's out there who has awesome, like really horrible shoulder pain or going through IVF and wants to get pregnant, or a kiddo who has consistent stomach pain and just can't poop, I can help them. You need to tell them that I can help them because look, I helped you.
No. Yeah. I love that.
Because otherwise, you're not going to be able to get to those people. You're not going to be able to help them. And that's why
Yeah.
we're in this, all of us. I know for me, I don't know about for you, but I got into this profession because I wanted to help people feel better,
Hmm.
you know,
Me too. Absolutely.
and I think it's really important that you can help a lot of people without mentorship. You can definitely do it.
Hmm.
But how well are you going to be able to help them? How quickly are you going to get to the point where you can help them even more?
Hmm. That exactly. Yes. The and then kind of how quickly can you recognize that graduation is just the beginning. Licensure is
Mm,
just the beginning.
so true. It is
And with
so true.
mentorship, you whether it's a traditional lineage or not, but just through mentorship, there is connection. And
Hmm
that connection will really lead to success if you continue the practice and continue deepening and continue humbling yourself. And then back to sales, like if you practice a lot, you feel more comfortable and confident. Confidence is not
Yes.
just getting in the mirror and saying like, I'm a great acupuncturist. Like that's just being foolish. Like it's actually,
Yeah.
oh, well, my hands are doing the work and I'm feeling more comfortable. And now when I talk to somebody, whether I'm a good salesman or not a good salesman, because of my conviction in what I do, because I proved to myself that I've been practicing, then
hmm
then that's really the most powerful part of spreading who you are and what you do and come see me, and that makes it easy.
I
So
agree. I agree.
Yes, I'm a big component of sticking together, and I really hope that over time there's a lot more of this. There's a group in Australia on Instagram I follow. I can't remember them specifically, but it's like very clear. It's like mentorship for acupuncturists. And I was like, and their whole motto
Yeah.
is similar to this. They're like, they like set you up with a practitioner, and they're like, you guys are, here's your mentor, here's your student. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's so important. It's so, so
yeah.
important.
You did it to yourself.
Mhm. Panya's here using my dashin. She was actually doing it to where we to the pillow,
To the pillow and the blanket.
to the pillow and the blanket. She's pretty,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure she is pretty good. I bet you that pillow needed some treatment too.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So,
I guess then my last question for you then, Jimmy, is, it sounds like you looked into other mentorships and you did look around. What was it specifically about Shinku that helped you achieve your goals that you had or that you thought would achieve your goals that made you want to choose Shinku over a different mentorship program? Because there are a few out there in herbs and things like that. Most of them are just a year or two, but they are
huh.
out there.
I think that that's kind of a complicated question because as again, there was something about when we met at CSTCM that I could feel some sort of kindred spirit in there
Mm.
of being like, even remember coming home and telling Tiara. And then as she heard me talk about you, and then I really primarily, other than just a couple of other observation clinics, I just came and watched you because I
I
liked
had
the
no
concept
idea.
of watching your hands. Like that
Mm.
concept really resonates with me is that this is the job of the hands. I'm like, I like to use my hands, and watching you, I'm like, I should watch her hands. She's good with her hands. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that there's a complexity into that of how to find the right mentor is that again, you really just to have faith in the process. Um, but I don't know. I have to say this. I had to listen to Tiara too. She's like, you should learn from her. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good thing.
Your
Every so
partner.
often I have to listen. Right? Every so often, it's important to listen to your partner. And
You have a
yeah,
pretty
I
cool
don't know.
partner too, I have to say. She seems
Yeah,
pretty cool.
she's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I think there's some subtle, it's really what I was saying is there's some subtlety to it.
Yeah.
And the subtlety is what's important to pick up on. And whether
Hmm.
it's mentorship in ShinKyu or mentorship elsewhere, I'm just really, truly, deeply in support of the continuation of the support after graduation.
Hmm.
And
No, I agree.
I'm gonna have to give this one to Tiara one more time. But when when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student
Hmm.
is ready, the teacher disappears.
Hmm.
So just being, and she read it from a book too, but she read it to me. Um, just having faith that like if you're meant to be in this medicine that and you're open to the concept that you might have more teachers out there and you can be humble to the fact that you didn't learn it all in acupuncture school and you don't have it all. I memorized this book and all the different things. If you can work on these are your personal practices, my personal practices that continue to work on being more humble, because that's an important part of being of service to our clients and our patients.
Hmm.
And through humbleness, as I'm talking about it, I feel arrogant all of a sudden. Um, then the right people pop up in your life. And
But
then when you
I
meet that
think
right
that's really
person,
true.
you
That's
meet
so
that right
true.
person, you're like, okay. And to then go directly to Shinku, anybody that's out there that likes to work with their hands and feels like that there's so much more to learn with your fine motor skills, with your hands, and how much more is possible with a needle. Shinku is the only place, what you're sharing with us is the only place that I've
Yeah.
been able to find.
Yeah,
I
it's
knew
true.
that there was more, and this is more.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I would love to say that there are many other choices, but there's not, unfortunately. Yeah.
There's not
It's there's
the embodied route. I haven't found much else. That's what that if that concept of embodiment is a catchphrase right now, it's exactly that. It's learning deeper
Mhm.
dexterity with the tools that we already have versus learning some new theory of this will help fix people.
Mhm. Yep, exactly.
No,
100%.
we're not.
Like,
First off, we're not here to fix people, and two,
yeah.
like, I don't know. Let's not even go there right now.
Yeah, no, but it's so true. And I often get on a soapbox and I try not to, but I find that, I think there's always something to be said about the new gadget, and they are very, very effective. But I think for me, me personally, and I think for a lot of the students in Shinkyu too, we came into this medicine to learn to be an acupuncturist. And
Mm-hmm.
the tools of an acupuncturist traditionally, classically, are very, very decided. They're your hands, they're moxibustion, and their needles.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not much else besides
Well,
those things.
I have to say that our senses too. So I was actually
Yeah.
putting a lot of emphasis that the needle's the tool, but really it's our ability, our body's ability to attune, to feel, to
Mm-hmm.
sense, to smell, to all of those
Yep.
things,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
No,
we
100%.
become the tool. We become like yeah, but
Yeah.
the medicine shared through the practitioner.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's, again, like, I don't want to be negative against any tool out there. I think, for example, laser therapy, and there's all these other things that you can do that are very, very effective. But I know I personally came into this medicine because I wanted to be an acupuncturist,
Hmm.
classically, traditionally, to be an acupuncturist. And I think there's a lot of people out there who came in to be that. And to really be an acupuncturist and be really good at an acupuncturist, you have to train and practice with acupuncture tools,
Yeah.
and as you said, learn how to move and generate your senses through the tools to
Mm,
have that communication and that conversation of key with your client, so that way you can help them get to the goals that they want to be at, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, with that, I would love to close out this conversation by saying thank you, Jimmy, so much for
Oh,
sharing
thank
your
you.
experience. I think as a new practitioner in this field, new meaning like new since graduation and actually opening up
Yeah.
your practice, within that first 2 years of your practice, your opinion can be, I think there's a lot of practitioners out there who are having a very similar experience to you. So I think
Hmm.
it's really inspirational that you are able and willing to share your experience here on the channel. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. Um, and then for anybody else who's watching this and who vibes with Jimmy and understands and is like, I'm having that same experience. If you feel that Shinku might be the place for you, I highly suggest setting up an interview to see if Shinku is the right platform for you. You're more than welcome to go into the comments below, and just put like, I want in, or schedule an interview. I'm more than happy to schedule that and really talk about your goals in the practice. I did the same thing with Jimmy. We got on a call. I think actually maybe you had come and sat with me in person for that. I can't remember if it was
Maybe. I
on
think
a call.
there's a couple. It took
Yeah,
some
we talked several times.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and really, so ShinKyu is a interview only process because I really want to curate our community of to make sure that they're all practitioners who are working towards a very similar goal and really want to transition their practice from TCM to a more traditional Japanese acupuncture and moxibustion foundationally strong practice.
Hmm.
So if that sounds like you, again, I encourage you to set up an interview. The link is in the description box below if you want to go ahead and do that on your own. And Jimmy, thank you so much again for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to your continued growth in the platform. I'm always
Yeah,
excited to see and hear about how all the experiences you're having. So thank you.
absolutely. You're welcome. And Maya, thank you too. Thank you for being here with me along this journey. Um, Even just I had a low week, a slow week last week, and came and made it to the workshop this weekend, and came home and just not magic, but just being in the field, being a part of acupuncture. Another part of not giving up in these early phases of practices, it can be, you can go off on tangents. Oh, I have to go do this, but just staying focused. And then I'm like, oh, a couple people booked, even when I was just, I didn't go out and sell. I was just in the workshop and practicing, and I come out and look at my phone and a couple people booked this week. So I'm like, okay,
That's awesome.
you know, the
Just
unseen
telling the
part of
universe.
it. Exactly.